Hello everybody. In this lesson, I am going to tell about how organic molecules are represented on a board or on a paper. Representations of organic compounds. There are different ways of representing the organic compound. It may be a molecular formula, structural formula, condensed structural formula, bond line structural formula, ball and stick model, space filling model, 3D structures. Different ways are there to represent the organic compounds. These organic compounds are linked through covalent bond. After learning this lesson, you will be able to understand, you will be able to write, you will be able to represent the given organic compound in a different manner. You know that molecular formula 1, which going to tell us about the number of carbon atom, number of hydrogen atoms, because you know that all the organic compound, they are going to contain carbon and hydrogen. So you are going to understand how those carbon and hydrogen have been linked, how many number of carbon atoms are there, how many number of hydrogen atoms are there, apart from that other elements if they are present, how many number are there. That will going to tell us in the molecular formula, that you are going to represent in the form of a structure. You know that organic chemistry is a branch of chemistry which deals about carbon, or generally all the carbon compounds, they are going to contain carbon and hydrogen. If your organic compound contains a carbon and hydrogen, they are called as hydrocarbons. Therefore, we have redefined the organic chemistry as hydrocarbons and their derivatives. These are generally they are made up of carbon and hydrogen, but 95% of them are organic, which are not synthesized in the lab, which are obtained in a nature, 95%, but another 5% they are synthesized in the lab. So there are different sources of organic compounds are there. As I already told you, 95% is available in nature. It may be from plants and animals, natural gas, petroleum, coal, from the fermentation, and only 5% we are going to prepare, we are going to do in the lab. Synthetic, only 5% are synthetic in nature. So organic compounds, when you consider their properties, they definitely they differ from inorganic salts. They have the low solubility in water. You know that when you put sugar or salt into the water, they are going to dissolve. But these organic compounds, they do not dissolve so easily. They are insoluble in water, low solubility in water. So in the picture you can see different layers. They are highly combustible. They immediately catches fire and they are going to release carbon dioxide and water. They have very low melting point. They immediately catches fire. They are going to change their phase. If it is a solid, they get converted into liquid like that. They also exhibit the isomerism, which is not the part and parcel of the organic salts. And these are formed by a covalent linkage. Covalent linkage is nothing but there will be a mutual sharing of electron between the two atoms. Then the bond will be formed. That bond we are going to call it as a covalent bond or a covalent nature. And these reactions are very slow reactions because they are molecular in nature. So you have to convert that, we have to split that into ions. Then the later reaction takes place. When you consider the inorganic, they are already in the form of an ions. They are already in the cation and anion form. Therefore, those reactions are instantaneous. Whereas the organic reactions are slow reactions. Molecular weights of these organic compounds are also very high, often over than 1000. Most organic compounds serve as a source for food for bacteria. When you compare between inorganic and organic compounds, organic compounds have low melting and boiling point, whereas inorganic compounds have high melting and boiling points, low solubility in water, whereas inorganic compounds have a high solubility in water. And highly flammable. Organic compounds are highly flammable, whereas inorganic compounds are non-flammable. For example, salt, it is an inorganic compound, so it's non-flammable. Solutions do not conduct electricity, whereas inorganic salts, they are going to conduct electricity because they are already in the form of an ion. Chemical reactions are slow in organic compounds, whereas reactions are instantaneous. They are going to exhibit the isomerism. Here also they are going to exhibit the isomerism in inorganic, particularly transition elements, but not S and P block elements. They exhibit the covalent bonding. Here they are going to exhibit the ionic bonding. Ionic bonding takes place by the complete transfer of electron from one atom to another atom, whereas a covalent bond takes place between the equal sharing of electron. Carbon has multiple unique properties which influences how it behaves and it bonds with other atoms. Carbon has 4 valency, it is tetravalent in nature, and also it can form a covalent bond with a same carbon or with other elements. It can form a single bond, it can form a double bond, it can form a single triple bond, it can form a cyclic compound, it can form a straight chain, branched chain. So many varieties of bond can be formed that makes carbon as an unique element in the periodic table. These compounds can be represented, these molecules, the organic compounds are, organic molecules are the molecules which are going to contain carbon and hydrogen along with oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, sulfur and halogen. So these molecules can be represented on a paper or on a board in a different manner, like molecular formula, structural formula, condensed structural formula, bond line structure, ball and stick model, space filling model, 3Ds, etc. So different forms of representations are there. Molecular formula is the simplest one. It's going to represent how many number of carbon atoms, how many number of hydrogen atoms, how many number of oxygen atoms are present, different types of oxygen. For example, sugar glucose. Glucose will going to have 6 carbon atoms, 12 hydrogen atoms, 6 oxygen atoms. Therefore, we are going to write the molecular formula as C6H12O6. By convention, carbon is listed first, hydrogen second, followed by oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, finally any other halogens. Whenever you are going to write the molecular formula, always you are going to write carbon first, hydrogen next other elements we are going to write by convention. The molecular formula are very rarely used in organic chemistry because we doesn't know whether they are linked through carbon bond, carbon-carbon single bond, double bond, triple bond or cyclic molecules. It doesn't give us the information about the particular molecule. Therefore, generally we are not going to represent it by formula. Generally we are going to represent them by structural formula. Structural formula is a formula in which we are going to write the molecular formula, but we are going to write how the linkage between the two atoms, linkage between carbon how it has been linked, that every atom how it has been linked, every bond how it is represented. So that we are going to write in the form of a line. The structural formula of an organic compound shows every bond between every atom in a molecule. Each bond is represented by a line. That line indicates the bond. So double bond, single bond or a triple bond, any bond. So this we are going to the structural formula. Sometimes it is very difficult to write all bonds. Therefore, we are going to condense the structural formula because we know that carbon has a 4 valency. Each time it is attached to hydrogen. Instead of writing 4 bonds attached to carbon, we can write CH3. So this is the way we are going to write when you write in a book or in a paper. It is also possible to represent the molecule without showing any bonds between two atoms. This is called as condensed structural formula. This is the way we are going to write in a book, or whenever we are going to write the answer, this is the way we are going to mention. And another way is there, that is called as bond line structure. It's also called as bond line formula, skeletal formula representation. This is a representation only by the line. I already told you that line is nothing but a bond. The representation of a molecular structure in which the covalent bonds are represented with one line for each level of the bond order. This is not similar but not identical to Lewis structure. So we are going to write this similar to Lewis structure, but it is not Lewis structure. Lewis structure is entirely dot formula, whereas here we are going to write the bond. Each bond we are going to represent with a line. It may be a double bond or it may be a triple bond. This type of structural representation we are going to call it as bond line structure or bond line formula. Another thing is there, that is called as polygon formula. Particularly in the case of cyclic molecules, in order to mention the instead of writing the carbon each time, we are going to represent them by the polygon pictures, polygon representation, polygon figures like a square, triangle, pentagon, hexagon. These are called as polygon formula. This is possible only for cyclic molecules. It may be saturated or unsaturated. Cyclopropane, cyclobutane, benzene, all these will come under this way of representing. Actually, when you consider these molecules, when you consider the three-dimensional, it is very difficult to imagine the three-dimensional picture of that molecule. In that time, real ball and stick model will come into a picture. So we are going to consider the carbon, which is black in color, that will be at the center. This is the structure. First one is the structure of methane. The carbon is there. That carbon in turn linked to 4 hydrogen atoms. Whereas in the second case, you are going to have an ethane, again single bond. So each carbon atom is linked to 3 hydrogen atom, and carbon between them there is a bond. This we are going to call it as the ball and stick model. Actually we are going to take a balls of different colors with using a stick. We are going to connect together and we try to understand the 3-dimensional picture. This we are going to call it as ball and stick model. Again, space filling model is there. Sometimes what happens, depending upon the size of that particular atom that's linked with the carbon, we are going to write a space filling models like this. We are going to, here this is also a structure of a methane. At the center you are going to have a carbon. Along with that you are going to have 4 hydrogen atoms. This is the way also we are going to. Another way we can consider methane, for example, structural formula, molecular formula is CH4. Structural formula is, I have written carbon attached to 4 hydrogen atom which are satisfied by a single bond. So in a single line we are writing. Molecular formula ball and stick means we can write like this. Again, space filling model means we are going to write like this. This is going to give an idea that the size of the atoms that are involved in that particular organic compound will come to know. Again, another method is there. This is helpful only in the case of the stereochemical representation. These are called as stereo representation or 3D structures. When you consider the 3-dimensional picture, when you are going to represent the 3-dimensional picture, which is real ones are called as ball and stick model, but the same ball and stick model which are in a 2-dimensional one, which we are going to represent those are 3-dimensional ones. Ball and stick models are 3-dimensional ones. 3-dimensional ones we are going to represent on a 2-dimensional paper or a board, that we are going to call it as 3D structures. So we can write the line or the dashed lines or wedged lines, dot and wedged lines. Like this we are going to represent, that going to say that whether that bond is towards the observer or away from the observer. So in order to understand that, we are going to have 3D structures. Like this we are going to have different structures, representation of an organic molecules. Organic molecules are linked through a covalent bond which is very powerful without any expectation. So our friendship should also be like that. Nothing to worry about the organic chemistry. Remember, carbon has only 4 bonds. Therefore, you start loving organic chemistry. Thank you. All the best.